mental is more than anything else. And if you're dysregulated, it doesn't matter how fit you are. It doesn't matter how smart you are. If you can't regulate your nervous system, it's like years of training down the drain.
Hi, I'm Jenna Medina, and this is Find Your Dolce, the new podcast where we explore joyful living and how to create your Dolce Vita life. I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for joining. Let's get started. Welcome to the Find Your Dolce podcast. Thank you for being here. Today we are speaking with Jenna Medina. I am so excited to chat with her. She is a HeartMath facilitator and coach who helps athletes and high performers learn how to regulate stress, sharpen focus, and bring the heart and mind into alignment. Welcome, Jenna. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yay. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be on the podcast. And like we were just saying, it fits so well with what you're doing and just living in a flow and making life a little bit easier for everyone. So yeah.
Yes, we are trying to add as much Dolce as we can to our
Dolce,
days, right?
yeah, love it. I love it.
Well, this is going to be really interesting because, as we were saying, not too many people know about HeartMath, and it's a really important thing to learn. So I guess, let's get started. Let's get right into it. How did you sort of get into all this? I know you were in wellness, you were in the wellness space before. So maybe you can just sort of start us, take us back to the beginning of the journey.
So pretty much what happened is I was in fitness for 10 years. I did a lot in fitness. I competed, I trained, and then I eventually launched an e-com business. And 5 years into that business, I was really burning out. It was during COVID. I was filming myself all the time. And yeah, it was just, it was just feeling like it wasn't serving me anymore. And like thinking about going into my 40s, I was kind of like, oh, like it just wasn't feeling like aligned. So I just kind of woke up one morning, 2021, and was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was so anxious because that was like when I was like 38. I just, after 10 years of doing something that was so easy for me to do because I knew how to do it well. And and then I was so anxious and someone had introduced HeartMath to me, like someone in my building. And so I actually started doing HeartMath. I started doing the techniques and the practices, and I just fell in love with it so much that I ended up getting certified. And that's kind of how the story went. What actually happened is I sold my place and ended up like saying I was going to move to the mountains. And I left and I went to Banff and I went to the West Coast and I started doing HeartMath the whole time I was there because I was so anxious of like not knowing what I was going to do next or where I was going to go. And then it just helped me so much that I just, again, like fitness helped me, HeartMath helped me, and I became so passionate about it. And it drove me to, get certified and start helping other people.
Wow. And the beautiful thing about that is that it was just so natural. It was a natural fit, something that wasn't necessarily forced. You discovered it, you fell in love with it. So it really connected with you. And I think that's why you have such a passion for helping others with this. But now, can you explain maybe in simple terms, what is HeartMath?
Yeah. So HeartMath is self-regulation, which we all need. But what it is it's heart-brain communication. So it's the science of what happens to our bodies when we're stressed out and how to tap into our hearts and self-regulate and, change our patterns. So our heart actually controls the way that we think and we take action. And it's responsible for our pattern recognition system. So what a lot of people don't realize is our heart, because it's the first organ to be developed, sends more signals to our brain than our brain does to our heart. So a lot of people talk about flow state and being in a flow. You'll see it a lot in like athletic documentaries and like, high performers that are like, I was in a flow state, but no one explains how they got there, or they don't even most of the time realize how they got there. So I teach the science behind how to tap into the flow state and get there in the most stressful situation. So
Wow.
actually
Okay.
HeartMath has been around for 25 years. And it was initially used for army and police enforcement. A lot of the police enforcement in Toronto have actually had training for HeartMath because it's how to stay calm in stressful situations.
Wow. Now this
Yeah.
is a tool I think everyone can
Everyone,
benefit from.
everyone could use, yes.
Yeah. And one of the key terms I noticed in heart math is heart coherence. Can you maybe touch upon that and explain that a little
Yeah.
bit more?
Well, the easiest way to understand the word coherence is when you think about like incoherence and you think about someone who's maybe like drinking a little too much or like very tired and just kind of discombobulated, that's incoherence. Coherence is like in a flow state, very like sharp, focused, and just calm. So coherence itself is what we strive for. And the other word I use for it is flow state or flow. So when we can understand that our heart rhythms affect the way that we think and take action and how to then control that, that's when we can shift from incoherence to coherence, like within seconds. So a
Wow.
cool example
Okay.
for this is like when I teach corporate, a lot of corporate people will get up and they'll do a speech and they'll like, they'll do a talk or a presentation. And what a lot of people don't realize is when we get triggered, triggers are based from deep emotional patterns. So when we get triggered, it can shift the way that we perform because we then start freaking out a bit, right? When we're stressed and we're freaked out, we're not thinking clearly. So to be able to, in that moment, tap into our heart space and do the heart math techniques that I'll teach you today, we're able to then shift so quickly and not allow our triggers to take over and kind of rule the rest of the day or the presentation or whatever it is. So a good example is also when you're fighting with someone and you're so frustrated and then you leave and you're like, "Oh my god, I should have said this," but you were so frustrated that you couldn't think clearly or take action clearly, so you didn't. That's a perfect example of how in that moment, if you just took a breath in and tapped into your heart space, you could calm down and then be able to execute what you wanted to say without being dysregulated.
Okay. Wow. So
Mm.
can you maybe give like, because in terms of training,
Yeah,
let's take that example for starters. How
yeah,
do you figure that out? So like, yeah,
yeah.
when you're in that moment where emotions are running high and taking over, what do you
For
do? What
for
would a heart math
athletes,
thing do? Hmm.
For athletes in particular, how it would look is when we're in a flow state, first of all, there's less injuries and you're just performing better. So our stats for heart math are, 24% increase in focus, right? And performance, and then 46 decrease in anxiety. So when you look at like an athlete who's anxious to perform, they have a competition, they have a big game, whatever it is, what we would do is tap into our heart space before going out there or give them the technique so that they can do it themselves so that they're constantly in a flow. So after people are trained through me on how to tap into your heart space, and then after you start practicing it and you know what it feels like, you're constantly using that as a practice. So I call it like heart training, right? Another great example is like for me, I was in a pattern of falling every time I was doing my Let's Jump, which I was just like filming. And I did the jump, I fell again, and then I did like two heart math sessions back to back just to clear my mind and to clear my focus so that I'm not in that pattern. And I landed it. So it's like, it's
Oh.
also just, we know as athletes, when you're calm and you're regulated, you're performing on a level that's peak performance all the time. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's
Wow.
a little
Okay.
bit of how we do it with athletes. With coworkers at corporate events, a little different. We'll sit down and talk about kind of like your workspace, your work culture, and we could do this with athletes too when it comes to like the team. But pretty much what we talk about is how, you're not going to get along that well with everyone. Everyone is so different. So where things are frustrating you, being able to pinpoint that and then being able to like shift into something that we find that we appreciate about that situation or person so that we have a different shift when it comes to them. So they no longer trigger you as you're continuing to work or perform or, work in a team, in any team.
Okay. That is awesome. That is so cool. And the thing that I really love as I'm listening to you explain this is the connection to, you're talking about this flow state and being present and sort of slowing down essentially. And I love how this connects to like Italian lifestyle.
Oh,
Everyone who goes to Italy always says the same thing. Oh my gosh, like I felt so much better. I didn't
yeah.
feel this anxiety. Their way of life is just so different. And so what do you think of that correlation that
Oh,
seems to
yeah,
be
no,
there?
I completely agree. So the whole thing about tapping into your heart space and getting into coherence and getting into a flow state is being able to flow throughout the day. Also being able to recognize patterns. Like when you start flowing, you're less reactive because you're regulated, right? So you are going to feel better, and people, I mean, some people can trigger you for years, like family members, and it takes a long time to break that pattern. But when you think about like some people that are in frustration like 5 to 6 times a day, if we can even cut that down to 2 or 3, it's like, yeah, just like living with ease, we're taking
Yeah.
away and bringing awareness. I think the most important thing with heart math, which I always talk about, is if you leave with this awareness that your heart actually determines, how you think and how you take action and your patterns, and you understand that it's like it's a physical thing happening when you're reacting, and it's a pattern, and you can change that through neuroplasticity, which is creating new neural pathways through heart math. Then yeah, life becomes much easier. Like living in ease is exactly it. Also, I mean, in Italy, when you travel too, because everything's new and like you're doing things differently, you are also opening up your mind to wire differently. So everything is going to be in a flow a bit easier. Like I talk about like things that can also you can link to and anchor in to tap you in. So whether that's, doing your makeup or when you're doing skincare or, when you're going grocery shopping, whatever it is to tap you in. So when you're in Italy, everything's tapping you in. You're like, this food is so good and you have such appreciation for it. You're like, the weather is beautiful, so you're going to be more in a flow for sure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But like you said, it's about learning how to then bring that home, right? We can't always be on vacation, but it's
No,
connecting
100%.
all of that. And how did you most see the changes in your own life? Like I know you sort of touched upon it, but what would you say has been the biggest difference you've seen in your own life since you started this?
Honestly, just like trusting my heart. They say like lead with your heart and follow your heart. Um, Trusting it and tapping in. Obviously, anxiety wise, I saw a huge difference. I wasn't someone that was like really anxious. I've always been fitness prone and working out and, so it's like I was always having an outlet, but that was no longer working. So anxious wise, that was a huge thing for me. But also, the biggest thing I would say is I had a really big trigger within my family, and I learned how to change that narrative through changing my own pattern. So with Heart
Right.
Math, it's all about you. You can only change you. And the coolest thing is like, and I always say like no reaction is a different reaction. So it's like once you become aware that you have these like patterns or like people trigger you a certain way and you react a certain way, and you start taking in a breath and just tapping into your heart in those moments of wanting to react, and you just don't react and you change, that creates like a new neural pathway. So that creates like a different version of you. And now this person is confused because they're so used to getting this like reaction out of you. Um,
Mhm.
and and eventually they follow, because when we're in coherence, when we're in a flow state, our heart radius is extended and that's contagious. So we
Yeah.
start flowing differently and then they join. So the biggest thing for me was being like probably the most emotional, dysregulated person of the family to like, Jenna's so calm, like she's so regulated, like what is happening? And being able to change a lot of my relationships because of it.
Wow, this is
Mhm.
fascinating,
Yeah,
fascinating. And I
it's
think
so
about
fun.
like from a mom point of view, I'm just like,
Oh,
this is necessary
I was
because,
yeah, no, I was sorry. I was just gonna say my coach when I did Heart Math had 2 daughters, and she said that when she understood her patterns and like had awareness of where she was reacting and understanding that's literally just a pattern, and when she started changing her patterns, her daughters like from that moment on referred her as like a new mom because she was just in this like cycle of being frustrated all the time. And no one wants to be frustrated all the time. But when you start creating that pattern, you almost don't realize like our brains are like clockwork. Like it's literally like it'll always reset to that if you don't bring awareness to it and try to change it. So yeah, huge difference.
Yeah, that is cool. And I mean, this kind of like you said, like you're sort of in this state, this new state that you create. And I know like even because you work a lot with athletes, it's called like they refer to it as like being in the zone, right? So it's kind of
Mhm,
like you get into this zone.
mhm,
So I guess like you said, when you have the heart math, you have the tools to get to that zone more consistently.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Okay.
really easy. Like I can do a quick coherence shift with you right now if you want. And then
Sure.
what's the coolest thing is we can even measure it on your Apple Watch or your Fitbit or your Aura Ring.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
coolest thing about the techniques, this is just one of them. They can be done with your eyes open. It's not
Okay.
about a meditative state. It's completely different from meditation because what we're doing is we're heart training.
Okay.
So, what we're doing, and the most important part about HeartMath is bringing in feelings into the heart space so that we can,
Okay.
because our heart, we're changing our heart rhythms, right? So we want to flow. So frustration will look like this, maybe even too much excitement will look like this. We're trying to come like this, like just a little flow on that neutral line where you're like still feeling like these beautiful feelings, but they're not as
Mhm.
extreme.
Okay.
Okay, so you are just gonna take a minute here. Perfect.
Okay.
You're gonna take a deep breath in through your nose
Okay.
and you're gonna breathe out and just keep on breathing. And when you breathe in, you're gonna picture your breath going in and out of your heart area. And as you breathe into your heart, you're gonna think about one thing that you appreciate about today. And it can be like this session right here and just learning something new. It could be something that happened this morning or this afternoon. And you're just going to hold that feeling of appreciation. It can be for yourself, most importantly for yourself, for getting up and doing something different every day and expanding this beautiful life of Dolce and just loving, you know, spreading the love really. It's like such a beautiful thing. And you're just holding that in your heart. And literally it's that easy. You're literally just shifting already by just bringing
Mhm.
feelings of appreciation into the heart.
Yes. I
And
yeah.
yeah,
It
do you
feels
feel
really
it?
good. Yes, like, it's really like the pause, right? And being conscious of
Mhm,
like connecting, like you said. I think it was different when I was just taking a deep breath. I have to say, my mind kind of was still going everywhere. But when
mhm.
you said, like, imagine connected to your heart, it felt a little bit different when you visualize that. I have to
Yeah,
say,
you
your
visualize the
body,
breath,
yeah,
then
it
having
really
a
does make a
focus
difference.
of appreciation.
Yes.
And that can be even
Yeah.
like you can also extend the appreciation to like people in your life, like your
Oh,
parents and your kids and like just it's really just about tapping in and changing that rhythm. So whatever gets you there the most. And then
right.
once now, because you felt it and it takes
Hmm.
a minute or two, it's like so quick.
Yeah.
My next step would be like find something that gets you in that mode, like whether that's when you're having your coffee in the morning and you want to tap in, something you can connect to that taps you in. So it becomes like a habit. And then
Okay.
eventually we start doing it more and holding it longer. And when we're in that state, I told you our heart radius extends up to 3 meters, which they can actually measure in hospitals, which is insane. That's how we become magnetic. And that's how we start attracting things to us. So now, not only are we living in this flow and we're like not as reactive and not as frustrated, we're also magnetic. So, this like thought of hustle culture or things that is not as needed because we're just attracting so much to us.
Wow. This
And it
is really,
works.
this
It
is
really
cool.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
really works.
love I
Yeah.
love it. This is so connected to, what I always try to express as well, the daily dolce. I mention about always taking that moment, but it really is. I wasn't thinking about it on the physical sense, So thank you for that because it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
amazing. And like I said, I was sort of taking it from the point of view of like what I know from Italian culture and what I learned with my grandparents and just
Okay.
that style of life. And it's amazing how this connects to it and then extends even more. Like you're talking about the magnetic
Oh, it's insane.
ways that we are and whatnot. It's amazing. Definitely this is so great that we're talking about this. I want more people to learn about it. And I do want people to know a little bit about your background even more because this is amazing that you started this, but like you have a very solid background in entrepreneurship. You were on Dragon's Den. Let us know a little bit about that. Like what has your past sort of helped you bring to this right now?
Yeah, I mean, I will say the hustle culture, right? Like I was like, and it's not that I'm not hustling or working just as much now. It's just different. It's a different energy. Um, yeah, Dragon's
And
Den. I burnt out. I went so hard. I did Dragon's Den. I did the pro show. I did shows left, right, and center. I was, selling these boxes and doing them all on my own with the website and social. And, it was amazing. I learned so much about what it takes to start a business, what it takes for marketing. But I think at the end of the day, being in a flow and understanding that just having that energy, knowing how to tap into it, and then being able to manage my stress, my anxiety, I know that I'm not going to burn out doing it because I know
yeah.
how to tap in now. And also, like, being able to teach tapping in and having to do that every time I'm with clients or I'm with, like, it reminds me, it's like,
Right.
even right now, I could get thrown off by something during this podcast where it's like I'm talking so much and I lose my focus. And it's like, take a deep breath in, just like tap in a bit more, like, and just,
Yeah.
yeah. So
And
it's been so good. Yeah.
yeah, and I think like, this is really important to talk about because I think our society focuses so much on the physical in terms of like you got to get into shape, right? You got to be your best self and et cetera, et cetera. And we have spoken a little bit about the mental part of it. That piece has come into play. But I think this is like the reminder that you need the mental in order for the physical to work. Right. So
Oh,
it's like you can
yeah.
do all those things, but this is really the most important thing because you can have all that physical top notch shape. But if you can't focus and can't get there, then it's sort of lost, right?
Well, we saw it in the Olympics. It's like you will see these athletes, they train for years and years and years. And then they go out there and they're so nervous. They don't know how to control their nervous system and they're not performing well. They're not landing jumps. They're not, as a team connecting because they're frustrated, right? So
Yeah.
it's so wild to me how mental is more than anything else. And if you're dysregulated, it doesn't matter how fit you are, it doesn't matter how smart you are. If you get up there, you have a job interview, you have a competition, and you can't regulate your nervous system and speak clearly and take action clearly, just flow with it. It's like years of training down the drain, you know? So
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, you see it in competitions all the time. I was watching this surfing documentary in Hawaii because I'm just like, I mean, I love Hawaii, but I'm not saying it probably it's like Hawaii. So, anyways, but I'm watching this surfing documentary and they surf for like 10 hours a day. And this one girl is talking about how every competition she's so nervous and she doesn't do well. And I wish I could just be by her side to help her tap in so she could be regulated and to teach her that so that that's gone, like
Yeah.
the
Oh,
ease is
yeah.
gone, you're back in a flow. So it's
Yes.
interesting. Unfortunately, it's the reality of especially athletes, a lot of athletes. It's hard to
And
watch.
And I would say performers too. Like I'm a singer,
Oh,
so
for
I
sure.
this is needed in that area too, right?
Oh,
And
for
like you said,
sure.
you deal with the executives and whatnot because
Yeah.
it really is like you said, you prepare for a moment and you can be technically there, but you have to be mentally okay in order to pull that moment through. So
Yeah.
this is fantastic. It's a fantastic tool. And I mean, you obviously believe in it enough. You built a whole business around it. And, what would you say has been the best part of this journey so far?
a couple things, like, I would say I've always been a huge believer of, like, anything's possible, so being able to open people's minds up that if you start changing the way you do things, you'll start wiring differently and you'll be able to create new ideas and new ways of living. So you can change your life through heart math. You can take different paths, and that will essentially lead to a whole new life, which is really, really cool. And then I would say the second thing would be honestly, like tapping into a lot of people when it comes to relationships and how frustrated they are and how that takes up a lot of space and effort and energy in their lives. So, how to reframe and change the perception of that, and knowing that when we change ourselves, that will then follow. And it might not happen right away. It might take a while, um, but it will change because when you change yourself, people around you have to change. They have to understand that something's shifted, and you're no longer going to react to the way that they used to speak to you. So things change, you know? So I think that's probably the coolest part is being able to shift the mindset of so many people and know that like no matter how hard a situation is, if you view it differently and you change the way that you focus on it and you tap into your heart as much as you can, it it may not be like what you've wanted it to be, but it'll be much better than it was before. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. And I love how you mentioned mindset because I
Yeah.
often talk about La Dolce Vita. People think it's a trip. That's the Dolce Vita. You got to be living a certain way or, with
Oh, no.
certain expenses or et cetera, et cetera. Right. And I think that's sort of just one version, but I always say like, no, it's actually a mindset,
Yep.
similar to what you're saying. It's shifting your focus. And I think that's exactly what we were kind of referring to before. Like, how you mentioned like, oh, it was the hustle culture, and
Yeah.
like that's what brought you to this. And I think to myself, people in other countries, they're also successful, but they're not burnt out all the time. So I feel like what you're doing is like you're taking,
100%.
right? You're taking this new
100.
way of living. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the burnout is real, and I think especially living in Toronto, and then having my own business and doing all that, the burnout is yeah, and when you think about it, like, life can be short sometimes. It's like, do we wanna live like that? Another I mean, Joe Dispenza's a huge heart math lover, like, he loves it, but he also talks about, like, how the heart heals, and it does. Like, it's like love is the answer to every essentially, that's what heart math comes down to, is when we're giving ourselves love and appreciation and when we're giving other people love, even if we're so frustrated, even if we're just like done with them, if we can just shift a little bit, that makes a huge difference in how you feel, right? And that's
Yes.
the
Mm.
ease and the life of vacation at home, you know? So yeah,
Right. Mm.
I love that. Now you know that your way of living in the Dolce life is all about also tapping into your heart,
Yes.
and knowing that
Yeah.
that's the science of what's actually happening when you're in a flow. So it's like
Yes.
what you're teaching, I'm just explaining the background of physiologically what's happening in our bodies when our
Yeah.
hearts sending our brain these like beautiful like notes of just like coherence and rhythm and flow and how we can just like think clearly and feel just like at ease.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that. And I love this other side of it. Like, and
Yeah.
it's fascinating. I've always loved biology. So, like, I love
Yeah.
learning all this. And, I'm sure others do too. I hope, right? Like, I guess one thing I wanted to say too, you've mentioned so many great tips, but if there was one thing just right off the bat, right after this conversation that you want people to remember so that they can sort of reconnect with themselves on the daily, what would that be? Is there something you can kind of
Yeah.
leave them with?
I
Yeah.
mean, I think the most important thing is knowing that our heart actually controls the way that we think and that we take action. So if our heart controls the way that we think and take action, that means at any moment where you feel like you're not at ease and you're frustrated and you're incoherence, just tap into your heart. Just tap into your
Okay.
heart, give your heart love, whatever it is, just tap into it. And I promise you'll think clearly, you'll move forward clearly. Like, it's every day we're making decisions. And a lot of the times people aren't sure, is this the right decision? Is this the right decision? And I always say, come back to yourself, come back to your heart, the love that you have for yourself, and everything will flow the way that it's meant to. You know, it
I
really
love
is a huge thing in heart math is follow your heart. And
Yeah.
I mean that's what you do too. It's like it's so simple. It's so simple. I mean, the science aspect that I love about it is being able to measure it on a biofeedback and be able to then actually train your heart every day and see the difference there so that you're flowing more often. Because it is a process. You know, they say within 6 to 8 weeks you have 46% decrease in anxiety. So that's actually not long considering it's a minute or two of training a day. But to see the long-term results of like the way that your family responds to you or the people in your life or your coworkers, and then creating a new life for yourself, you know, like I left for the mountains. I was scared. I didn't know if this was something. I just kept following my heart. I kept doing HeartMath, and it was like the best thing I ever did, you know?
Wow.
So
That's
yeah.
amazing. It is so
Mm,
cool. This is
yeah,
so
it's
cool.
really
I love it. And you were talking about following your heart, right? Speaking to your
yes.
heart, tapping into your heart. I want to ask you a question that I ask all my guests. What is your daily dolce? So how do you give your heart love through your daily dolce?
Oh,
Is
I
it
love
one
that.
thing? Is a few things maybe,
I
but
love that. Yeah.
yeah.
I actually a practice I really love that like helps me is right before bed. I I always massage my calves. Like my
Oh,
calves are just
that's cool.
tight all the
Yeah,
time. I don't know.
yeah,
But when I'm
yeah.
massaging my calves before I like pass out, it's always I go through the day and like I go through what in the day makes me feel grateful. And it can be like, you know, my neighbor helped me out with my light bulb and that was amazing and I needed that. Or it can be like my mom was amazing. Like it
Yeah.
can it doesn't have to be such a big thing. It can be so simple as like someone opened the door for you and that felt really good or bought your coffee and that was like so sweet, you know? A lot of the times it's connecting with friends. Like today it'll be like this podcast. I had a great podcast today, so I'm really appreciative of that. And it felt really good connecting with someone else who lives and eats and like wants to spread the love. So that's something I'll be really grateful for today. So I do it through that. Even actually, I know this is weird to say, but when I'm driving, I always shift because when you're driving, you're like so focused on the road and you can't be so distracted. So it's a one time I can really like just shift and think about things. I just shift while I'm driving. That's to show that like you can be in chaotic moments and shift. Like you can be focused on other things and shift. Like it's not taking away focus from anything else.
Yeah.
Um,
It
yeah.
sounds to me like this really teaches control, taking
Yes.
back control a bit, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and I love how I love your daily dolce. It's cool. It's kind of like people do a gratitude journal. You do gratitude in other ways,
Yeah.
and it's like reflecting on those moments. So very nice. Well, thank you so much. I feel like this has been such an eye opener. Like I said, even though we're doing different things, sometimes we don't understand the science behind it or how to
Yeah.
measure things, as you were saying, and the impact that that has. So I am so happy that we talked about this, that we hopefully taught many about it, and we will continue to. So thank you so much for being
Thank
here, Jenna.
you.
And we'll be sure to tell everybody where to find out information about you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I love what you're doing, and this was such a
Thank you.
good compliment to what you're doing because it's just reaffirming that like love and having these moments are what make your life beautiful. You know, it's the
Yes.
little right. So yeah,
Yeah. It's all
yeah,
about the Dolce.
I love it. I love it.
All
Dolce
right.
and flow. We can
Yes.
Dolce flow.
I love it. The Dolce Flow. There you go. We got a new tag
I love
phrase.
it. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Jenna.
you
We'll
so
talk
much.
soon.
Okay, have a great day. Thank you.
This marks the end of season 1 of the Find Your Dolce podcast. Thank you so much for being here and for following along. It was a season full of connection with amazing individuals, lots of learning, and of course, Dolce fun. Stay tuned and follow along to see what's in store next.